can you stop going into my garbage bin? Get out of there. Get out of there. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Giri's Kitchen. I finally got YouTube partner. Thank you so much for those who subscribe, like my videos, and followed. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will continue to work hard to make sure that there's more videos to come. And this week it'll be really special. I will finally be making Japanese curry, but not any Japanese curry. I will try to replicate the famous Japanese curry chain Coco Curry's curry. It's a very unique sauce and flavor profile that they have, so I'm gonna see if I can do it. I really miss it when I was back in Japan. And alongside the curry, I will also be making potato croquettes. It's gonna be really yummy. It's gonna be a fun time. So if you want to see more content, make sure you smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, ring the notification, all those wonderful things, and I will try my best to pump out really fun content for everybody. And thank you for supporting me, guys. Thank you. And now on to the cooking. So for Coco curry, we're actually gonna do the croquettes first, and the reason is for croquettes, it actually needs time to rest in the fridge to kind of hold the shape a little bit before we start frying it. We have potatoes for the croquettes. We have ground pork for the croquettes as well, and onion. And that's pretty much it. Croquettes are actually very simple. It doesn't require like a lot of ingredients. I'm gonna peel the potatoes first. This portion will make about 6 to 8 croquettes, and the rest that I'm not gonna eat, I'm just gonna end up putting into the freezer so I can eat it later. So for potatoes, to prep it, we just have to boil it. It's nothing really fancy. We just cook boiling until it's fully cooked, and then we're gonna take it out, mash it a little bit, and then combine it with everything else. Normally, if you're just boiling it at home, I think just like regular big chunks will be fine. But for stream, I don't want to spend too much time boiling it, so I'm gonna cut it into like this kind, like 1 inch, 1.5 inch kind of cubes or whatever. I'm just gonna salt the water quite heavily. I want to make sure that there's going to be some seasoning into the potato so that it's not going in completely bland while we're making the croquettes. And it also will, the salt actually makes the water boil faster as well. While that's happening, maybe we can start prepping everything else.
Chat, you need to work on your fitness.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Y'all fat.
Fitness stick in your mouth.
Oh.
Emotional, damn it!
I'm just dicing my onions now the usual way. Downwards, acrosswards, and then the other waywards. The best midnight snack is basically me, obviously, and my food. This is cooked. I'm gonna mash it a little bit when it's wet, while it's still warm and okay.
What the fuck?
For the onions, I'm actually gonna saute it in butter to get a bit of extra flavor. You don't have to use butter, it's very optional, but I like the creaminess of the butter in the croquette, so I'm gonna do a little bit of butter, 1 tablespoon-ish. So one tip that I wanna tell you guys is that if I'm making a dish where I want the taste and creaminess of the butter, but I'm like sauteing veggies, for example, where you tend to kind of saute at a higher temperature. If you only put in butter, you might run the risk of potentially burning the butter, and then you might have a little bit of like bitter or brown bits, and no one likes that. So I like to kind of temper or cut the butter a little bit with a little bit of vegetable oil, so it will bring the smoking point up, so that when I'm actually sauteing things at a higher temperature, it won't actually start smoking and burning whatever I'm cooking. And then I also have ground pork here. We don't need a lot of ground pork, we only need a little bit, because usually with Japanese croquettes, there's always a little bit of meat in the croquette. It's not just potato. You can do minced beef, minced pork, minced lamb even if you want to. It doesn't really matter. I prefer to use pork, so that's why I'm doing pork today. I'm just slowly cooking this until it's wilted. I'm not really looking for caramelized for croquettes. I'm just looking for cooked and maybe a little bit golden brown. You only need about 100 grams or so. So for this, it's probably about this much. You can add a bit more if you want, a little bit less if you want. I'm gonna salt the meat a little bit just so that there is some flavor in the onions and everything already. So this is nicely mixed in. So I'm gonna add my potatoes now. And this also will dry out the potatoes a little bit to make it a little less wet and more easy to manage. And this step is kind of important. You don't want to just put in the cooked onions into the potatoes without stir frying the potatoes first, because if the potatoes are kind of still wet from being boiled earlier, it will be a little bit too hard for you to handle. Like it'll kind kind of start to fall through your fingers a little bit when you're trying to mold it into like a patty shape. So drying it out a little bit will make it a lot easier for you to handle. If it's a little too salty, one thing that you can use to combat the extra salt is just add some bit more sugar, and that sugar will kind of cut down a bit of the saltiness a little bit if you accidentally over seasoned. Or if you want, you can add in a little bit of vinegar. That can help as well. Spiciness will also help as well. So if you accidentally over salted something that's like a dry dish, don't worry about it, don't freak out. Just either add more of the plain ingredient if you have it, but obviously I don't have extra potatoes, so if you did accidentally over season, then just add a little bit of sugar to kind of combat the saltiness. So what we're gonna do now, so now that it's done stir frying, I'm gonna actually lay it down flat to make it look like a pan pizza or something, and this will help me make even portions when I am making the croquette patties. That looks flat enough, and then I'm just gonna use my spoon and kind of. So this is what it looks like right now. There's potato, there's onion, and there's meat. That's it. Very, very simple. This is very, very hot, so be careful. Just make sure it's cooled down to a temperature that you can handle it well with. What the heck? Okay, and I have a morph suit on, as you guys can see. I have the morph suit, I have my gloves, so my hands are quite protected. Grab a little plate, whatever you have, and then I'm going to start forming it. You wanna make sure that they're flat. If you do make it too thin and then you fry it afterwards, it might end up falling apart when you're kind of turning it around with your chopsticks and stuff. So you want it to be maybe half an inch thick, almost 1 inch thick, and then you wanna shape it into whatever shape you want. You wanna make sure that your edges are not tapered. You wanna make sure that your edges don't look like this, where it's like thick on the middle and then skinny on the outside, because that will also cause your croquettes to crack when you're frying it. So try your best to kind of shape it where it looks like those, you know, those broccoli medallions in IKEA? That's what you want them to look like. Finger width, a little bit like that, finger width. One sausage, it's not a sausage finger, it's a very delicate finger, as delicate as I am. It's a delicate finger, look how delicate my finger is. It's not a sausage finger. I hate you guys. Time. So how I usually make my curry when I'm eating curry just for myself, I actually just get some water. I put in some chicken stock or like beef bouillon or chicken bouillon. If you don't have stock, just regular water is completely fine. It just might be a little bland, but it'll still be very, very delicious with the roux carrying it. I basically get a pot that you can stir fry with. I put some oil in. I cut some onions really roughly. I don't do the tiny dice. I do the carrots into like smaller pieces, like smaller chunks, like maybe this big or so, and potatoes as well. If you want to add in like pork, tofu, beef, whatever you want, now's your chance to do that. You can do sliced pork. You can do chunks of like chicken thigh or whatever. You can also do chunks of steak if you want, or you can do like regular flank steak, but cut it against the grain so it's more tender that way. How I measure the curry blocks is I usually put in 1 as the base. So 1 is always the minimum for me when I'm making it for like 1 person or 2 people. So if you like it thinner, then add less. If you like it thicker, add in more. But today we're not going to be doing the easy way around. We're going to be trying to make Coco curry. So we're going to need our curry blocks. I'm going to have to set it aside. These are 2 small onions. So if you have large onions, just do half of an onion. And we're not dicing it. We're just going to be slicing it. And there's going to be a reason why we're slicing it. Slicing it, I do recommend it's better because for what we're going to be doing after with the sauce, if you're doing it into like large chunks, it might take a while for it to cook down. We're still looking for it to cook down quite thoroughly and evenly. We're going to be caramelizing the onions. So slicing it is the best way to caramelize them because it has the largest amount of surface area. Carrot, I don't need all of it. I'm just gonna do like this much. You don't have to care about the shape a lot. Just make sure that it's small-ish so that's easy to cook down when we're sauteing it. Not too high, just medium heat. Because we're caramelizing the onions first. I caramelized onions the last time. So a trick to caramelizing onions, it will take a little bit of time, so you have to be patient, but the best way to caramelize onions is on medium heat or on medium low heat. And the reason is if you put it on high heat, it will burn without caramelizing. Caramelizing basically means that you're slowly drawing the natural sugars of the onion out using heat. So if you're using high heat, you're just basically burning the onions and you're not caramelizing anything. You need to have the heat do its job slowly to make sure that it's like rendering all the sugars out of the onions. This kind of pot does tend to not burn, but it tends to caramelize a little quickly on the bottom, but don't worry about it. This is what we call fond, F-O-N-D, fond. So that's where all the flavor is gonna be later on when we add all the liquids and stuff like that. This kind of color is fine. If it's too black, then maybe it's a little bit over, but it can still be salvaged, don't worry. This recipe actually requires a little bit of pork, not too much, just a little bit. And the reason is because I want to add a little bit of meatiness to the sauce without overbearing it. The onions are the only ingredient where I'm looking for caramelized, but everything else, as long as the meat is cooked through, we can start adding the water. Water for this portion, I have 600 milliliters of water, and now I can turn the heat higher. Into the water, we're gonna add some chicken bouillon, and for you guys, because I love you guys, I'm gonna add an MSG, okay? This ingredient was kind of interesting when I was trying to find recipes online, but this person actually added in fried, this is fried shallot, I know, but they actually added in fried onion into their soup base to kind of increase a bit of that extra oniony umami taste. I thought that was really interesting, so I'm gonna try it myself as well. So the recipe said like 2 teaspoons or something. I'm gonna eyeball it. I'm gonna do like a nice healthy handful. I'm gonna turn the heat off right now because I don't want to accidentally overcook anything or boil anything too much. I have a blender, but to save some counter space, and also my blender is really, really loud, I actually have an immersion blender. I'm gonna be using, oh shit. If you have a regular blender, I recommend that you actually do it on a regular blender because it's a bit more powerful. You can get a bit more even blend with it. Do you ever notice how much you moan? I don't moan a lot, right chat? I moan like bare minimum. Okay, maybe another thick one. It's not absolutely smooth because we're not going for absolutely smooth. We still want a little bit of like chunkiness, a little bit of texture. I'm gonna add in 2 curry cubes. I'm using the S&B brand, the golden curry one. This particular one is the spicy version. It takes a little bit of time for the curry blocks to melt, so just make sure you're a little bit patient. So just to amp up the flavor a little bit, I'm gonna add in about 1 teaspoon of curry powder. I have Japanese Worcestershire sauce and Japanese barbecue sauce. These are the 2 things where you can supplement, you can change it out for just the regular like Western version of Worcestershire sauce and the Western version of barbecue sauce, but the flavor will not be very authentic. There is a slight difference between Japanese Worcestershire sauce and Western Worcestershire sauce. I think the Japanese ones are a little bit more sweet and a little bit more tangy compared to the Western one. And then it also calls for Japanese barbecue sauce. This is the one thing where I can't find the exact one that the recipe used. So I literally just got yakiniku tare, which is literally Japanese barbecue sauce. It's not really like barbecue sauce, like the American understanding of barbecue sauce. This is basically a dipping sauce for Japanese barbecue. For Worcestershire sauce, we need 1 teaspoon, and then also the Japanese barbecue sauce. I'm gonna shake it a little bit because there is a little bit of garlic and sesames inside. 1 tiny little splash, not too much. And then also white pepper. You can add in black pepper, but I actually prefer white pepper over black pepper when I'm cooking. One last secret ingredient to make your curry sauce extra full-bodied and that extra little kick that you would need to make it take it to the next level with extra umami and richness. Okay, is everyone ready? Instant coffee. Dark coffee has a natural bitterness and sourness to it that will amplify the Worcestershire sauce and also the curry sauce itself into the root. If you don't have instant coffee, then you can do really dark chocolate. That will be okay as well, just a little nib of it. The curry sauce is basically done now. I'm gonna set this aside so that it can cool down. And then we're gonna move on to the croquettes now. Another pot. I'm gonna have some oil. Corn oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, corn oil, they will all work just as well. You want an oil with a higher smoke point, which means that they will not smoke as easily at higher temperatures. I'm gonna get my eggs ready first. I think 1 egg will be enough, but I'm gonna do 2 eggs just in case. So I'm gonna have 1 plate that has flour. This is cake flour, but any flour is fine. And the other thing that we're gonna be using is panko. Panko is the crispy bread crumb thing that's usually used for Japanese fried foods. So first thing that you do, put into the flour. The flour will stick to the surface of the croquette, and the flour will also help the egg stick to the croquette. And then once the croquette is wet with the egg, it'll help stick the panko onto the croquette. So there's a reason for everything. So we always do flour first, and then egg, and then panko, and then we're gonna set it onto our cutting board, and then we're gonna heat up the oil, and then we can start frying. Use your hands, use your chopsticks, whatever you want. I'm just gonna use my hands because I think it's easier. Just dust off the extra, and then just pop it into your egg, and then mix it, and then take it out with your chopstick, and then you just dunk it into your panko. Make sure everything is nice and covered. Press down with your hands a little bit. It'll help the panko stick a little bit better without falling off. Just gently though, and then once it's done, you can set that aside and we can work on the rest of them. So So these are done. I'm gonna turn the heat on for the oil. A good way to test if your oil is hot enough is actually just to stick your chopstick into the oil. If it starts to bubble around the chopstick, it means that the oil is hot enough. And generally that temperature is around 350, 375. It's starting to bubble a little bit, so I'm gonna turn the heat down just a little and I'm gonna start frying. So I'm gonna start putting my croquettes in. As you're frying, adjust the temperature as you go, especially when you're not using too much oil. The temperature can fluctuate a little bit when you're adding in cold foods into hot oil. I feel like these are pretty much golden brown, so I'm gonna start draining these. Target, see, I know how to Target. Is it not Target? It's Target, right? I thought that's how you pronounce it. Target. That's how fancy people pronounce it. Oh God, Pom-Pom is coming.
You don't shower every day, so don't call yourself fancy.
So I had rice that I was making. I made it this morning. So this is fresh from the rice cooker. I'm just gonna grab a little bit of rice. I'm trying to plate it so it's a little bit pretty. So this is quite saucy and liquidy. So I'm gonna pour over half of the rice and the rest of it, I'm gonna have it like sit on the plate a little. And then to prevent my croquettes from getting extra soggy from touching the sauce, I actually have cheese. And who doesn't like cheese anyways? I'm gonna put a bit of cheese on top of the warm curry so that it actually has a chance to melt as well. But this will act like a little bed or like a little buffer for my croquette so that it doesn't over soggy from touching the sauce. And then I'm gonna make it a little bit fancy. I'm gonna add a little bit of the green, the seaweed, just to make it a little bit fancy and pretty. And this is a completed meal. Today we made Japanese curry. I tried my best to kind of replicate the Coco curry style, and I think it turned out really well. I also made potato croquettes with minced pork inside. If you try it out at home, feel free to leave a comment down below. I would love to see how it turned out for you. And remember to follow and subscribe and all those wonderful things. I would really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in my next video. Take care, everyone. Bye. I try my best to. I don't like that one. One more time. I don't like that one. One more time. 3, 2, 1.
Wow.
And this is. And 3, 2, 1. And this is the completed meal. Oh my God, guys! I'm just. Let me get over one sentence, okay? Please, okay.